Melissa, thank you for agreeing to talk to me and answer a couple of questions I have on International Women's Day.
Thank you.
So I guess my first question is, what does International Women's Day mean to Melissa?
What does it mean to me? Well, it means actually a lot of things. It's probably very hard to sum up, but if I had to sum it up, I would say that there's probably three broad topics that come to mind. Two are more universal that impact all women, and the third is more personal to me. I think first and foremost, International Women's Day means recognizing that women should be given the power and women should be empowered to be able to make the choices that they want to be whatever they want to be, just like the choice, men have the same choices. So I think that equality needs to be given to women. Now, that means obviously different things to different women, right? It could mean giving women the opportunity and the tools to become be in leadership roles within organizations. It could also mean giving women the tools to not only achieve their career goals, but also be able to be active participants in their families. And it could also mean, I mean, there's so many meanings, but it could also mean being more accepting and inclusive of women who decide to stay home to raise their families, or men who decide to stay home so that women can persevere in their careers. I think the second topic that really helps to describe what International Women's Day means to me is just recognizing the women that have come before us who really have pushed to achieve equality for women. And that's something that we should never lose sight of, and not only recognize the women that came before us, but the women that are constantly trying to drive change now and the women that will drive change in the future. And third, more personally, it means putting women in leadership roles within organizations where they belong, giving them the tools, the opportunity, and the means to be able to be in these roles, and having the support of men within organizations. Ultimately, I want to have a world in which General Motors, a company like General Motors that is run by women, is not the exception, but rather the norm. And when I say that, I don't mean men should be displaced or women should be placed in roles simply because they're women, but they should be given opportunity and support in order to develop into those roles.
Wow, that was actually really deep, Melissa. Um, yeah. Uh, oh. All right. My final question is, what one action do you want men to take to support gender equality today?
I think one action, it's hard to sum up in one action because I think there's multiple facets to that one action. The first thing men really need to do is actively listen to truly understand what the issues are. Men should not be deciding for women on their own what the issues are. They really need to reach out to the women in their lives, both personally and professionally, to really truly understand how they can drive change, personally and professionally. And once they have that knowledge, then they could um, really become an active member in their communities, personally and professionally, um, to drive this change. And that's broad, and I think it means a lot of different things. Again, it could mean for men that are in more senior leadership roles, encouraging the C-suite to develop policies and procedures that are truly promoting equality and diversity within their organizations and actually have some teeth to them. It could also mean simply developing women within their organizations, and creating programs that bring the women up so that they could be in the more senior leadership roles. I think if men first, like I said, listen and then actually actively take steps to become a partner, we could drive a lot of change.
Melissa, really insightful there. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time for doing this.
Thank you.
There we go.
Awesome.
Vera, thank you so much for agreeing to do this with me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, as I said, it's just 2 questions. So the first question is, what does International Women's Day mean to you?
Well, International Women's Day, actually, for a long time, I was doing fundraising for Care International. So for the longest time, it was a day of advocacy and action to me, and raising awareness about the plight of women around the world, and how if we can lift mothers up, we can lift them out of poverty. That was the message I was driving home for many years, and it was really struck me. So personally, that's what it is, but it also reminds me that advocacy and action for women every day is really the thing that we should think about. But it's just a good reminder to reflect and then think about the ways that you can do something in your life, in your own community, one thing, one day at a time, and also not just for women, but also for your allies, the men who are your allies, and people of every gender. So it's that's what it means to me. So it means a lot.
That's great, and I think I'm going to say you're my ally, and you do a lot for me, as I was mentioning before. So, but that does lead me nicely on in talking about actions to my final question. What one action do you want men to take to support gender equality?
Great question. I think what men can do is advocacy. Actually, it's about if you have the seat at the table, talk about the women who are not at the table, bring them into the room, be there for them, advocate for them. Sometimes because they're not at the table or in the room, they don't have a voice, and you can be that voice. And I think that's important. And then obviously letting them know that you did that and in a way that you didn't intend to, because it's not because they don't have a voice necessarily. They do, but sometimes you're just not invited. And so if you can extend that invitation, that is a very powerful thing. And if you can advocate, I think that's just one thing you can do. And then it will snowball and turn into something bigger than that. So the small things count.
Okay, so any men watching, advocate, advocate, advocate. Vera, thank you so much for answering these couple of questions. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Have a great day.
Faith, thank you for joining me and agreeing to answer a couple of questions on International Women's Day. Just for everybody to know, and in all honesty, Faith is my niece and also a person who doesn't know it, but actually made me start really trying to use my platform to push forward DE&I, because at the time I thought she was going to be a lawyer, and then I looked at our profession and saw how terrible it was in relation to diversity, that I needed to do something because she was about to enter the profession. Luckily, she's changed her mind and is actually going into education, which I think is the key to DE&I anyway. So, Faith, thank you.
You're welcome.
And as I told you, it's just a really simple couple of questions. So the first question is, what does International Women's Day mean to Faith?
For me, I was just thinking about this question, and I was really thinking, like, although it's a celebration of all women, I think it's definitely a celebration of the women who have come before us and have really broken those barriers and, that glass ceiling for us, and has made it possible for us to go forward. And someone that really inspired me in the last year was Kamala Harris, and I love when she talks about her mum, and she says, you may be the first to do something, but don't be the last. And I think that's what's really great about International Women's Day, is that we all support each other in going forward, and it's not just about us, it's womankind as a whole.
That's interesting. Kamala Harris is one of my heroes. And also that point about glass ceiling, which I was having a conversation with my colleague today about, do we need to break the glass ceiling or just get rid of the ceiling? So my second question then is, for you, what one thing can men do to fight gender inequality or support gender equality?
I think the most important thing is education. And I think not just teaching girls that, you know, you're equal and there's nothing that stops you, but I think it's really important to teach the younger generation of boys when they grow up, you know, that we're all equal and we should respect women. And just because we look different or have different qualities doesn't mean that we're any less able than them. And I think that's really important, is starting education from the younger ages growing up, because that is our future society.
Thank you for that insight. Can I ask you one more question?
Yeah.
What are you doing your dissertation on?
The domestic abuse and the new domestic abuse bill, and does it go far enough to protect women?
And does it?
Well, I think it makes a huge positive step when, you know, they get rid of this association that you're entitled to better protection if you're a married woman. Because if you look at the trends in England, the biggest trend is people who are cohabiting, not those who are married. And, you know, being a single woman, or, you know, you're not married, doesn't make you any less worthy than a married woman. However, I think obviously there's a long way to go with protection. I mean, even with, for example, non-molestation orders, the police aren't enforcing it. Courts prefer property rights, for example, with occupation orders over the victim's rights. And I think just the way the court and the police look at domestic abuse needs to change.
Yep. And I'm looking forward to seeing that come out as a report that actually helps push things forward. So Faith, thank you so much. Good luck with your finals this year, and in educating our sons to be better.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Rena, thank you for agreeing to this little mini interview. So it's for International Women's Day, and I have really just two questions to ask you. The first one is, what does International Women's Day mean to Rena?
Thank you, Kevin. Actually, I think it's a day that reminds me everyone deserves an equal right to be effective, to make a difference, and the right to be taken seriously. Going to my 40s, it's also a day to give myself a peaceful time to reflect on improvement, regardless of all kinds of trifles.
Thank you. That's great. And yeah, as someone in my 40s, I can tell you reflection is a big part of it now. My final question then is, what one thing should men do right now to, or what one action should they be taking to support gender equality?
Yeah, this is a very good question. I don't want to make this question a very big or very serious topic. I think it's very simple. From my opinion, it's very simple. Just to start your first step to respect women. So I hope all of the men can say Happy Women's Day to all the women that you meet in the office on Women's Day. Yeah, that's what I expected.
Okay, there you have it. For any men listening, just start making your first steps on this journey. Thank you, Rena.
Yes,
I really
right.
appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Asha, thank you for agreeing to do this little mini interview for International Women's Day.
Thank you.
So let's just get straight into it. What does International Women's Day mean to you?
About celebrating the accomplishments of women, particularly in terms of where we've got to on gender equality balance, but it's also a reminder that there's still some way to go before we can say with some conviction that we live in a truly gender equal world.
Brilliant. And that leads nicely then onto my next question, which is sort of about allies, which is, in your view, what one thing can men do to support gender equality or fight gender inequality?
I think there are actually some things, but if I'm limiting it to one, then I'll stick to in the workplace. I think probably one of the really helpful things is not to assume the support that your female colleagues need, but to ask them and listen. So for example, don't assume that a female colleague who's a mother will not be willing to travel to that important meeting. You know, we want the same opportunities and we want a level playing field. And can I give another one? For a
Yes, you
bonus
can.
point.
Yes, you can, for the bonus point.
Well, I would say that if you're in a position to shape company policy, then equal parental leave is absolutely one of the ways in which we can try to achieve that gender equality in the workplace.
That's a great point. I'm fully for that because, you know, with a new baby imminently on the way, I would love that. I would. I'd love
Especially
it.
for you.
Yeah, yeah, especially for me. So, you know, I mean, obviously, no, that was a really serious point. And actually, that's a great way to tackle gender equality. So it's one of the many ways that I think some places are working on and others need to get on board. Asha, thank you very much for answering those two questions. And
you,
also a
Kevin.
shout out to you for the initiative within our own company of your suggestions to help promote an International Women's Day. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Kevin. It's a really important topic. So delighted to talk to you about it.
Great. Sarah, thank you for agreeing to this little mini interview for International Women's Day. So I'm going to get straight in here and ask you the first question, which is, what does International Women's Day mean to Sarah?
Kevin, thanks for asking me to join this. International Women's Day for me is a day for women and men globally to celebrate the achievements of women, how far we've come, but also how far we've got to go. And there's so many areas that we still need to improve on. We've still got a gender pay gap. We've still got inequality on boards. We still need to produce shortlists in the recruitment process that are diverse. So there's so many different areas that still need focus, but this is the one day where we can actually focus on that.
So I guess it's a real day of celebration then for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the fact that we're encouraging men and women to be part of that conversation is really important because it takes everybody to be aware of the challenges and the achievements and what we need to do to get true equality.
Yeah. All right. So what one action can men do, in your opinion, to support gender equality?
One big area that I see in the corporate environment is for men to be inclusive and aware of the fact that women react to situations differently to men. And sometimes women need a bit more encouragement to speak up and to speak out, particularly in meetings. So it's just having that mindfulness and that awareness that when you've got a group of people, if you're leading a meeting, sometimes women might need a bit more encouragement to sit at the table, to voice their opinions. It's not that they don't have opinions, but they might need a little bit more support speaking out than their male counterparts.
That just reminds me of something then. I guess, you know, that photo, you see this image going around, it's used quite a lot now, equality, equity. It's essentially equity, isn't it? Like recognizing that everybody is different and they have different needs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's just being receptive. And I think as diversity becomes more prominent in organizations, it's realizing that with diversity comes a diversity of mindset as well. It's not just background, it's not just gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation. It's the way that people approach things, and women approach situations different to men in all walks of life. And I think for men, it's just having an awareness of that and not using the same approach that they would use with men for women.
Brilliant. Sarah, thank you so much for sharing your insights. I want to give a little plug though, because you're doing a very special event for International Women's Day. Do you want to quickly give a shout out for that?
Yes, thank you. I'm hosting a global fireside chat with the family behind the girl behind the face. So the Thomas family, Tina, Rog and Mui, have spent the past 25 years tackling discrimination, prejudice, and more recently cyberbullying because their daughter has a very rare skin condition. And they have taken it upon themselves to try and tackle inequality and prejudices and encourage everybody to look at their own prejudices and inaction. And so I will be speaking to them on Monday, the 8th of March. I'm so excited about it. It's such a privilege actually to be talking to them. And if anybody wants to register, Kevin can send you the link.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I appreciate this.
You're so welcome. Thanks for the initiative.
Thank you. Diana, thank you so much for agreeing to do this mini interview with me for International Women's Day.
Of course, Kevin.
So let's just jump straight in there. What does International Women's Day mean to you?
International Women's Day is a good reminder. I have a daughter who's 15 and 2 sons who are younger, and it's a reminder to take stock and see what we're doing and how we're contributing for women as well as men to be equal.
Great point you raised there. I think, I've got a daughter and a son, and we're expecting another one. And my wife always tells me we've got to raise our boys to appreciate and to understand equality and not ask the girls to change their behaviors because they are women. So I think what you're saying there really resonates with me. So the final question is, what one action, and I know there are many, but what one action would you want men to take to support gender equality, or I guess fight gender inequality?
One of the things that all of what's happened this year in terms of social justice and racial justice means is that a lot of men or people in power are starting to say, why am I so lucky? What am I assuming was all about my personal performance that is making me so successful, or, taking for granted a lot of the things that from a very young age, girls don't often get the kind of assumption of success that they'll have. And so I think, maybe a year ago I would have said, help out at home, but this year is really about wondering what the expectations are that you have of your boys and your girls that are different. And I was just speaking to my brother and thinking, yeah, I did. People assumed growing up that he would just not have to do things, that all he had to focus on was some of that success. And he did, and he was raised right. But I really do think that it's a time now for us to say, what is it that's contributing, and what can contribute to people, women for International Women's Day, but a lot of other people to rise up and be more equal altogether.
I guess a message for men here is understand the privilege that you have, but also look at what you can do to help all of us rise up. Would that be fair?
Yes, much more concise.
Thank you so much for doing this with me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much for doing it.
Hi, I'm Karen. I believe International Women's Day is an opportunity for us to celebrate women's achievements and for voices to be heard. I choose to challenge myself, my behaviours and my perspectives on gender diversity. I plan to push myself out my comfort zone, to learn more and to speak out. I will continue to support female colleagues in their accomplishments, and I will also encourage others to reflect on their own perspectives and behaviours relating to gender diversity in the workplace and praise positive change.